Welcome to another episode, another episode this week of Live, the Savvy Home Seller Housing Market Show. I'm Jen Sylvester. How you doing? Those that were affected by this storm this weekend, how you doing? We had 18 inches of snow here in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and I can feel it. I can feel myself aging. Holy cow. And we had another 3-4 inches of snow last night. So, yeah, I'm a little sluggish. well, a little sore. But how are you guys all doing? I have some family down in Austin. I know they got a lot of ice down there. Very, very slippery. But, jump in the chat. Let me know how you fared with this weather. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying warm because it is frigid. And just glancing at the news, before jumping on, I guess there's another massive storm coming. I don't know how far-reaching it's going to be, but they're calling it bombogenesis. Who comes up with these names? Crazy. All I know is it's going to hit Sunday into Monday. It's kind of like Groundhog Day. We're going to get more snow, up right along the eastern seaboard, supposedly, but it's only Tuesday, so we'll see what happens. But we're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about home prices and a couple new articles, some new data that was released by Zillow economists and Moody Analytics that went over the 380 metros and who's going to feel the pain, which home sellers are going to feel the pain this year and which ones are not. So it's just interesting. I know some of you have reached out to me, asked me to kind of touch on, your area and all this and what may be happening, what may not be happening. See, I told you, 2 days of snow blowing and shoveling and all the things. It's, you know what? I'm not like 25 anymore, apparently. Maybe up here, but not in here. But, there's changes brewing. So we're going to dig into that as I usually do, try to provide you guys as much value and information as possible, along with my commentary, because it's my show and I can do what I want to, and I appreciate all you guys showing up. So tonight we'll get into the outline here. So first off, we got, as always, post your wins. So, whatever's going on, please, even after the broadcast and the comments, jump down there and share. I love to, see the community support each other is fantastic. Make sure you put QQQ before your question so I can pick it out of the chat. So that I know there's a lot of side conversations in the chat, which I love and encourage and all the things, but I want to make sure that I get to everybody. Jump in the poll. I've got a poll going for, if you're watching this after the fact, unfortunately, you cannot participate in the poll, but when you're on the live stream, you can. So I'm curious to know what your opinion is on all of these economic forecasts. How much faith do you have in them? Because just because someone says it's so, this is not like, what is it? Star Trek, make it so. No, it's not that way. It's not black and white. There's so many variables. But it's like the weathermen. They told us this weekend we're supposed to get, I watched 4 different reports. I got 4 different averages, and we knew we were going to get between 2 and 24 inches of snow. That was it. So I kind of feel like that is often the case with housing market data as well. So what are we talking about? Well, we're going to talk about 2020 because the latest stats on the 2026 forecast, the rise and fall of home prices in 380 metros. No, I will not be going through all 380, rest assured. We're not going to do that. But as always, I put the links of the articles in the description after the show. You can feel free to check it out on, afterwards. And then quick update, President Trump is floating yet another policy aimed at helping home affordability. What is it? What does it mean? what is, is it going to mean anything? How all the things. So I'm going to get into that, try to keep you guys updated on all the stuff. And there's a lot to talk. There's always a lot to talk about. There's always something popping in the media. So we got over in the chat. We got MH08 thinking about you, MH08 being up in Denver. Wonder how much snow you guys got this last storm. We got Kaylee, sunny California, eh? Good to see you. Glad to see you. Let's see here. We've got a little ghost in the machine making a noise that I don't like. So we're going to, sorry about that distraction. I don't know what's going on there. So we got MH08 says, hello, Angie. We get storm in Denver. Lasted exactly the length of the game. 49 in Denver. Oh, yes. For sure. My condolences to MH08 because our Patriots, I'm not going to say it was a tough game. It was dog eat dog game. It was tense. I was biting my fingernails, but Patriots ended up winning out, but Denver played an amazing football game. It was a heated contest. Yes, MHA says installing a heated system under your driveway using warm water. Yes. Yeah, so, what's interesting is, and I hope you guys cannot hear that clicking. If you can you please just jump in the chat? When I bring up a comment, I'm hearing a clicking on my end, and that is new to me, and I've never heard that before. So if you guys can't hear it, that's great. But I actually looked into those heating systems, those heated driveways, just for fun. I can imagine how much they cost. Ridiculous. Kaylee says, I hope the market's going down so I can buy a house. 100%. 110%. Let's see. SMVP, so you got about 8 inches of snow. Thankfully, it wasn't 18. Yes. For sure. 44 degrees in Georgia. Oh, you can't hear it. That's fantastic. I appreciate that because I can ignore it. I want you guys to be good. I don't want you guys to be annoyed by it. So I'm just gonna adjust the volume. Well, it's a brand new system, SMVB. All my equipment is a brand new. I built my studio, but all new equipment. So, yes, everything is there's not a lot on it. There's not a lot, everything's done online these days. I'm not storing a lot of data on this computer, so that's good. But yes, you're 100%. I have backups for my backups. Nowadays, so easy. Now not that I want to side quest onto that subject, but it's so easy to get an online backup and a physical backup. I back up absolutely everything because I just don't want to lose anything. But in any event, before we jump in though, I got a quick article for you here. Just a little bit of something that came up that I want to have a chat about. And this actually is a local. This is local breaking news. Although this article this is from realtor.com, so it is gaining national attention. So they have 120 days to move or pay rent to stay in their mortgage-free home. Mark and Joan Hendel thought they were finally done moving. Instead, they're facing a countdown and an ultimatum. A month after moving into their home, into the home that they had meticulously designed for retirement, the couple received a notice that their property was being taken by eminent domain to make way for the $2.1 billion Sagamore Bridge replacement projects. For many long-term Cape Cod, Massachusetts residents, the project has loomed in the background after the bridge was deemed functionally obsolete by the Army Corps of Engineers in 2020. But the Hendels who built their home while living out of state had no idea they were in its path until the notice arrived. That was nearly a year ago, effectively starting the clock on the couple's last days in their brand new dream home, and now they have an end date. On March 13th, Massachusetts Department of Transportation is set to take possession of their deed to their home. Shortly after, they expect to receive compensation for the taking, money they'll need to buy again in a competitive housing market. From there, they'll have 120 days to find a new home, negotiate, close, and move out. If they miss that window, they will have to pay rent to remain in the house once they owned the pay in the house they once owned outright. The timeline has put the couple in between a slow-moving relocation process and a housing market that moves at breakneck speed. It's so overwhelming, Joan says. It's like a nightmare all over again. This is something that, I mean, so I live in Plymouth. Plymouth is, we border, born in Sagamore Beach, the Cape Cod. The Sagamore Bridge is 15 minutes from where I live, and I go over the Sagamore Bridge on a regular basis. And I have a friend that lives in the area that is affected. And so I've been talking to her for several years about this. And now it's actually taking root and moving forward. And it is devastating. Eminent domain, for those that may not know, this is a Legal Shield is the website, and it actually gave a pretty good explanation for those that don't know. So eminent domain, it's the government's power to take private property for public use while providing fair compensation to the property owner. This concept affects real estate transactions across the country. Yeah, it could happen anywhere, and has been the subject of numerous legal battles. Now, it's a long, long process to go through eminent domain, but essentially, it's in the Constitution. The foundation of eminent domain authority comes directly from the U.S. Constitution. It says the concept of eminent domain is rooted in the Fifth Amendment, and it says which states that nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. It is, they can't take it just for the sake of taking it. They've got to have a legitimate reason. And in this case, with the Sagamore Bridge being deemed obsolete, and unfortunately, what they're going to do is they're going to replace the bridge with a bigger bridge. Instead of 2 lanes, it will have 4. Because if anyone has vacationed or lives in this area, they are you're very well aware of the immense amount of traffic and backup. The backup could go during holidays, and once you get past Memorial Day, the traffic Friday afternoons, Sunday nights going either direction is a nightmare. Miles and miles of backup, and that's what they're trying to alleviate. But on the same note, they're taking properties. In the case of my friends, they're in a generational home that has a lot of memory and a lot of emotional attachment to the home. And unfortunately, they don't have, there's very little they can do. They can fight for compensation, for fair compensation, but they can't, if eminent domain has been made, if a good case has been made, they really don't have, you can't turn that ship around. It's a really, really tough situation. My heart goes out to these folks. My only commentary on this is how this is. They've been talking about this for years and years and years. How did they not know? How did they not know? They were building a house somewhere, somehow. I don't know if it was they dropped the ball. I don't know if they were working with a real estate agent that dropped the ball. It doesn't state that, but how did they come about buying this house? I just am shocked that they didn't know, because this is a big deal. Anyone that does any kind of research around, the area, it would have come up. So it's sad, and I'm obviously not. I'm not blaming them, but it's a sad situation that they're going through. But the reason I bring this up, obviously, is because this can happen anywhere. The importance of this illustrates the importance of knowing what you're buying doing the due diligence, making sure that if you're working with an agent, that agent is also doing that due diligence, and that you're questioning the agent to make sure that they did their due diligence, so that you understand what's happening around you. Is there open fields? Are there solar? Is there a proposed solar farm going in? Is there, going to be an empty lot that could be, developed? Is that empty? Is that open parcel of land? I had a situation earlier this year when I met with the seller. He says, "Oh, that's conservation land behind us." Well, I always do my due diligence as a listing agent representing them. I did my due diligence. It wasn't conservation land. They were told that when they bought it, but it wasn't conservation land. It was owned. It's a commercial property owned by owned by a private citizen that will likely not be built on, because it does have some wetland in it, but it's not. You can't say never. Cannot say never. You got to do your due diligence, because when you're faced with eminent domain, there's very little you can do. It's a long road. You can fight. You can absolutely fight, but it's a long road. And at the end of the day, if you can't make the case, you can't stop the train. So in any event, all right, let's check and see what's popping. What's popping in the comments? Let me see what you guys got. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. Oh, Angie says, had that happen here with freeway expansion, heard of it in other areas too. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, that happens a lot. And I think we're going to see more of these types of stories, because of the fact that, if we need more new construction, if things expanding and population growing and all the things, it stands, and depending on the area, some areas are, especially in California, there's a lot of congested areas that there's no room. You got to use a shoehorn to get anything in there, and it's going to start happening. Yes, 100% agree. Yes. Yes, sirree. Let's see. Wasn't it about 20 years ago the Supremes ruled that they can take the land for private development? No. Actually, and you know what? I actually have. So according to this Legal Shield website, is when they can take it. They can take it for transportation infrastructure, like Angie mentioned, utilities, public facilities, urban renewal projects addressing blight or economic development, and environmental conservation, but not for private development. They absolutely cannot take property by eminent domain for private development. Nope, 100%. Yes, I completely agree. Completely agree. I get that the eminent domain happens for infrastructure, but it is awful for whomever has to give up their homes. I can't imagine. I'm devastated for my good friend. Awful. It's just, it's wrong. I mean, I get it. It's for the greater good and all the things, but yeah, I agree. 100%. 100%. Clark, the realtor, says, I had a similar situation with a seller in a Summer Hill neighborhood in Atlanta. She thought that her residential property was zoned for commercial use, but it wasn't. Interesting. He says they rezone the property, but not for commercial use. I called down to the zoning department and got all the info for her because she thought she could sell it for mixed use, which she cannot. Yep. Good for you, Clark. Good for you. Yeah, it's complicated. So thought I just wanted to bring that up because that popped up, caught my eye, and we knew the day was coming when letters were going to be sent, and it's started. So all right, I'm going to move on here to the conversation at hand. So Fast Company released an article with home price forecasts for 2026 across 380 housing markets. Zillow versus Moody. And you know what? Zillow's data is more or less good. I like it when there's multiple economists, giving, contributing, so you can compare and contrast. So the worst of the pain in the housing market might be now and in the next 6 to 9 months. After that, things will begin to feel a little better, but not good. That's interesting. That's an interesting statement. It says, among the 24 price forecasts tracked by Resi Club in our final 2026 home price forecast roundup, the average prediction is a 1.43% increase in the U.S. home prices in 2026. I like that. I like small. What we need is to get this market back on track. And I talked about this last week, the week before. We need to allow income growth to surpass the housing market price, home value growth, home price growth. If that will happen, then eventually incomes will be in line with home values, and that is what will tip the scales and make things more affordable. I says, keep in mind that the roundup mentioned above looks at forecasts for nationally aggregated home prices. And this is important. As a regional and neighborhood basis, home price swings can vary greatly from the national figure. And I've said this quite often. You can have a town that has one area with a certain amount of appreciation, another area with a different amount of appreciation, or potential even depreciation. It really, really does get hyper-local when you're talking about this stuff. You can look at a state and have a general idea, or a metro and have a general idea overall how you're doing. So I can look at Northeast and overall, get a sense of what's happening. But at the end of the day, that cannot be applied to every single house in Plymouth. It doesn't work that way. Demand doesn't work that way. So when you're wondering about this stuff, it could vary. You got to talk to a professional. You got to do some research on your own, but also talk to a professional, find out what is, and the MLS is going to be probably the best source of tracking what that data is, what's happening with home values and appreciation and such. And you got to go through a real estate agent for that to get to the MLS data. Some MLS systems will allow that data to be available publicly, but one in mind that is springing to the top of my head is Texas. If you're in Texas, you have to go. They keep that information hostage. They hold it hostage. You have to talk to an agent to get that information. It says, for example, and it just goes on to talks about the different, how that can vary. Hartford, East Hartford, Middletown, Connecticut, and different appreciation and depreciation. It says, to better understand how regional home prices may vary in 2026, Resi Club reached out to economists at Zillow, whose forecast for the U.S. home prices rising by 2.1% in calendar 2026 is slightly above the average model, and economists at Moody Analytics, whose forecast at U.S. home prices rising at 0.8%, much more conservative in 2026, is slightly more bearish than the average model, to gather their metro level home price forecasts. I like the fact that they're comparing these, someone that's a little bit more aggressive and someone a little bit more, conservative, to kind of balance it out to see what the commonalities are. So if we look at the Zillow forecast, and again, I am going to put this link in the description so you guys can check this out. You hover over your area. I'm not going through all these areas, rest assured. The size of the dot is just the size of the metro, the population. That's all it's relative to. But the graph being that, red is depreciation, blue is appreciation. There's a lot of blue on this map. There really is. You have areas down here in Texas, and specifically Austin's negative 2% year over year. New Orleans, negative 3.8%. But if you go along, like Miami is still cranking along, 2.5% appreciation. Everybody says, oh, Florida is struggling. There's a lot of blue in Florida. They're predicting a flip in Florida, a comeback, and I think that this general sense tells me that we're on the mend, but it's not going to happen everywhere, and it's going to be at a snail pace. This 100% backs up my feeling, my advice when you're looking to buy, sell, make a move. Don't listen to the data. Don't plan based on the data. Don't plan based on the market conditions. They can change, but you got to formulate and look at your family situation, your own personal situation, because it can change in a heartbeat. If you plan on doing, you say, "Oh, well, if it appreciates at 2.5%, I'm going to move." That's not the way you should, safely. That's not the way you should approach it. I would approach it as a general speaking. This is, if you had an area that's all red, I would be super, super, super conservative when I'm looking at my numbers financially. I would go on the low end. If you get several, interview 3 agents. If you're thinking about selling your house, you should get 3, comparative market analysis where they come by and do all their numbers and give you prices and all the things. Please, 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 as a side note, do not gravitate towards the agent that gives you the highest price. Please don't do that. That is not a measure of their value. Okay, the price is the price. No matter, the data is the data. That should have no bearing. But that'll give you a sense of where it is now. If you're in an area that is, if you're in this part of, San Francisco or Sacramento, these areas are a little orange, which means they're on the negative side, right? Depreciation 0.2%, San Francisco depreciation 0.8%. I would be conservative. I'd take that analysis and then lower it when you're figuring out your numbers, when you're figuring out your finances, and whether, what you're going to walk away with, what your net proceeds are. Be conservative. They go on to say that when we published our final roundup of national home price forecast for 2026, Zillow was forecasting 1.2%. However, over the weekend, they slightly upgraded to 2.1%, which is interesting. The Zillow economist stated, with supply no longer as tight as it was during the pandemic, that is not across the board, price gains are likely to stay modest. Buyers should see a bit more time and leverage when they shop, while sellers can still build equity, just at a slower pace than in past boom years. Looking ahead, Zillow projects sales will strengthen in 2026 as mortgage rates trend lower and affordability improves. Existing home sales are forecast to reach 4.3 million next year, or a 5.2% year-over-year gain, which is much higher than we've had. After 2 slow years, the recovery is expected to be led by the Southwest and Southeast and West, where demand is more rate sensitive and is starting to rebound as borrowing costs ease. This is interesting. It's here's the bottom line on this thing. Everything's gonna be at a snail pace. It's gonna be like watching paint dry. There's gonna be no gains. There's not gonna be any sharp depreciation. It's gonna be it's gonna bump along. And honestly, I question. Sorry, I banged the table. Camera got all wobbly. I'm hoping for super, super, super mild appreciation. I'd be happy, just kind of status quo, like 0.5%. That would be like, let's slow it down. Slow it down. There are so many areas that are not at, they're not up to full speed when it comes to inventory. Up here in the Northeast, we're getting there, but it's not anywhere near close to where, it'll be more of a balanced market. We're still in a full sellers, more of a seller's market. Does that mean the sellers are calling the shots? Not necessarily. They're just not budging on the prices, and part of that, a good chunk of that, is the fact that buyers are sitting on the sidelines, and I don't think there's not an easy fix to get buyers off the sidelines. It's not going to be, half a percentage point mortgage, mortgage. I read a report this week that mortgage applications are up significantly. I wanted to, you know what, I don't have the data, but I'll have to get back to you guys on that. Mortgage applications are up. That is normal for this time of year. We're heading into February 1st. After the Super Bowl, typically that's when the spring market starts to rev up. Typically, in a healthy market and a normal market, that's when it starts to rev up. For that reason, when the spring market is the busiest time of the year, there tends to be more inventory, there tends to be more buyers, tends to be more competition. There's pros and cons. Spring market is not hands down the best time to buy or sell. It just depends on your situation. You will, as a buyer, you'll have more to choose from. Sellers are going to have more competition, but prices tend to go up a little higher because there's more people out shopping. There's typically the market goes up and down throughout the year. You're going to see appreciation, then you're going to be a little down, a little depreciation, summer, fall, appreciation, winter, depreciation, and then it's averaged over 12 months. So if, as a buyer, you have more to choose from, but you're going to pay a little bit more. So it's normal for people getting ready to potentially buy in the spring market to get their pre-approval now. That's what and those numbers are up. It's a good sign. I think I'm talking to my referral agents across the country. There is absolutely a sense of homeowners, home sellers, home buyers, just, saying, you know what, we're done waiting. We're done waiting. It is what it is. We want to move. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this year, regardless of what the market does. All right, let's check and see what's going on here. Over in said chat. Let's see here. I don't know. Oh, we got is a chat. Okay, here we go. All right. What do we got? We got, oh, geez, Cindy, that was just talking about the eminent domain. Says, this happened to my grandmother. It took a huge piece of her land for no apparent reason, gave her pennies on the dollar. She lost her husband when oh gosh. Or my father was 13 real. Or geez, that's awful. That is terrible. It's awful. Sad. I'm so sorry. Yes. And you know what? It's something that I'm going to be watching as well, because it's, as that unfolds, it's going to be interesting to see. Okay. Alex has got a question. Says, I found an agent who will give me a discount on unrepresentative buyer. Is this dual agency, even if disclosed, and buyer is a customer? When you say you found an agent, give me a discount on unrepresentative. They must be talking on the listing side. If you're on the listing side, if that's a listing agent, selling agent, and they said that they will give you a discount on an unrepresented buyer, you've got to be clear on whether it's, it could be dual agency. It could be a facilitator. There is another option. There's representation, there's dual agency, and there's facilitators. Facilitators represent no one. And they could be a facilitator to a buyer, but even then, I don't like it. I don't personally, have I done that? Yes. Do I like it? No, because I want to help people, and I've got to constantly put myself in check to make sure that I don't give that buyer any information that could potentially hurt the seller, and constantly remind them, I don't represent you. I don't represent you. I don't represent you. Everything I say, you tell me. I'm telling the seller. I personally just don't want to be held to, put in a situation where, it becomes either an accidental slip because I'm human, or or there's they perceive something like that happen. It's just not a good idea. So I personally don't like it, Alex. I think that you need to get clarification whether it's dual agency or facilitator, if they're taking on a facilitator role. But at the end of the day, you've got to trust your gut on the agent. If they are 20% or what I call a 10% agent, top 10% of all the, the real estate industry. And maybe they have a team and they can hand off the buyer to a team member. It really depends. I'm not a fan though. Is that a reason to dump the agent? It depends. It depends on how the rest of the interview went. If there were any other red flags, but I don't love it. Don't love it. Don't love it. Skate says the cost of new construction is rising, combined with limited existing home inventory in New England will keep home prices from falling. Yeah, it's a tough. I'm gonna hit on that on inventory in a bit. Let's see. Snipping it. Snipping it. Is that what? Snipe it. 7527. I'm looking for a small farm right now in Pennsylvania. Any advice? I'm going to grow a lot of healthy foods. Align yourself with a buyer agent that specializes in that has experiential knowledge. I wouldn't say specialized, but I would say experiential knowledge in farmland. That's what I would do, because they're going to be able to maybe see properties that you don't see. They'll be able to have insight into properties in the areas that you may not be aware of. But that's what I would do is, align yourself with a really good agent. I always say interview at least 3 agents before you sign anything. If only the reason being that you found an agent you like, but you just want to support that, confirm your decision by interviewing. Yeah, do your due diligence and interview multiple agents. It is not fun. It is not it's not the happiest part of buying and selling a house is interviewing a real estate agent, by no means. But once you've done it, once you checked all the boxes and gone through the conversation and found someone that you could potentially trust, they're going to be the partner in the business, in the transaction that you should consider one of the most valuable decisions that you've made during that process. So, all right. Now we heard from Zillow. Now we're going to move on to Moody's forecast, and Moody's forecast is definitely a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, conservative. They're looking at San Francisco being at dropping 3%. San Jose, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, negative 4.6%. And you notice the difference up here in the Northeast, which being up here, I don't necessarily agree with. You've got Barnstable, Boston. I just heard actually I read an article earlier yesterday that the outlook for Boston is very, very positive. Going into we don't have the inventory yet. We're still at a deficit for inventory. When there's a deficit for inventory, that props up the market because demand is higher. Period. You look at some of these Providence. Okay, Providence, Warwick, Rhode Island. Remember that, and I'm going to show you an article in a second. This is very interesting that they're calling for negative 0.2%. And just as a comparison, I'm going to look up here. Zillow is calling for a positive 3.5%. That is a conflict. That is talk about being on opposite ends. Very, very interesting. All right, so we'll see what they have to say. It says the forecast by Moody's chief economist, Mark Zandi, has U.S. home prices as measured by the Moody's repeat sales index rising just 0.8% in the calendar year, followed by a positive 1.5% in 2027. This is when I reached out to Moody Analytics for their updated home price forecast. He says long-term outlook for the U.S. housing market remains largely unchanged. He expects a prolonged period of stagnation as affordability gradually improves. Following the historic run-up in prices during the pandemic, housing boom, and the subsequent mortgage rate shock, Zandi believes resale activity, existing home sales, will likely stay frozen for several more years. Interesting. I think it's going to I've said this before. It's going to take a long time to right the ship. He goes on to say the worst of the pain in the housing market will be right now in the next 6 to 9 months. After that, things will begin to feel a little better, but not good. The housing market will heal. It's going to take time and a lot of patience. I'm interested to know why. Why is the worst of the pain in the housing market going to be now and in the next 6 to 9 months? This article doesn't go into that explanation, of why they're staying. Why specifically the 6 to 9 months? Inquiring minds want to know. Because everything that's going on doesn't lend itself, there's, unless there's a significant change in the market or outside the market. There could be changes outside the market. The more snowstorms we have in the Northeast, the more downward pressure we have on the market, the quieter the market is. Why? Because people, are not crazy about putting their house on the market with 2 feet of snow. Boston got 2 feet of snow this weekend, so it is outside, forecast. Who knows what's happening in, the political landscape? That absolutely will have an impact. Maybe they're expecting something that they haven't told us about. He says, we expect homes for sale to steadily increase as more existing homeowners need to sell for demographic reasons. And this is why during the great financial crisis, the market never died. When it crashed, okay, we had a plummet of home prices. We did 30 to 35%. Home prices crashed. But did the market die? No, it just changed. Why? Because of the fact that death, divorce, people having babies, job change, this does not stop. It never stops. There's always going to be a reason for people to move, period. What they move to, where they decide to plant, how much they end up spending, totally that will change. But the core of it is people need a place to live. They're not going to take a new job and, live in a box on the side of the road. Like you're going to get a house, or a condo or something. You're going to you need housing, period. Death, divorce. You have a big house and all of a sudden your spouse passes away or you're aging and you say, I don't want to deal with this house anymore. I don't need 2,500 square feet. I want something more manageable. It doesn't matter what the market's doing. That will still continue. It says lower rates, and the lower rates will help ease their interest rate lock. The potential lower rates will also support housing demand, but the increase in housing supply will be even more significant, weighing in on home price gains. The rates, my opinion, I'm going to zoom in on this for a little bit for you guys. My opinion on interest rates at the moment, I'm just going to, come on, zoom in. Jeepers creepers. Cooperate with me. What is going on here? Come on now. I just want to show this, guys. I want to show this to you guys. So the interest rates, regardless of, the Trump buying Treasury bonds, $200 million in Treasury bonds and trying to get the rates going, to come down. Look what January 15th to January 20th, it went up. It has since slid. This is all based on, yes, Treasury bonds and investor activity. And investor activity thinks that things have not been going well this past couple weeks. Stock market and so on and so forth. I am not anticipating this a big change. My gut in 30 years in this business, I don't see big changes in the interest rate. And I personally don't believe that interest rates will put, the only time that interest rates had a huge bearing on the market was during COVID, during the pandemic, when the rates were lowered. It's artificial. It wasn't real. It was crazy. 2.75% interest rate on a mortgage. That is not normal. That is why we had a glut of purchases, people that probably wouldn't have moved if they didn't have the rate, because you could get more for your free money, almost free money. Yes, Angie, I agree. Moody's a little bit too pessimistic. Agree. Let's see. All right. Christian says, put Rhode Island on the market days before storm. Now no one can check it out. Yes. That's it. It's a tough. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's tough. People will still buy. It's just, I mean, I've represented buyers that have purchased properties that are under snow, and I'll be honest, I don't like it at all, because you can't see the condition of the yard. You can't see, God help you if it has a pool. Forget about it. But, to have a clear idea of the condition of the lawn, does it have sprinkler systems? You want to confirm sprinkler systems, boundary lines, all the things. Like, it's hard to tell. It's really, really hard to tell. People do it, but for sure, if you have a choice, you're going to press the pause button. You're going to press the pause button. So I told you to put a pin in it on some of those towns that I mentioned. As far as Moody being a little bit, Moody Analytics is being a little moody. Narada Real Estate Investments posted this article a couple days ago. 10 hottest housing markets to watch in 2026, from Hartford to Milwaukee. Now, these are this is the overall picture for 2026. According to Zillow, slow, steady climb. What does that mean? The definition of hottest areas, and I like the fact that they define this. Low inventory, so that means not many homes for sale. Fast sales, homes are flying off the market quickly, which means that there's demand. Bidding wars, homes are often selling for more than their asking price. And strong price growth. Home values tend to increase at a healthy place. So what are the top 10? Here they are in a nutshell. And number 4, how do you have a depreciation, according to Moody Analytics, in Providence, Rhode Island, but we have, they're now saying that, according to Zillow predictions, that Providence, Rhode Island is number 4 on the list for the top 10 housing markets in the country in this year. Interesting. This charming New England city is making a strong showing due to its tight inventory and likely price appreciation. Rhode Island has been doing well, because of that. And where there's a draw, there's going to be appreciation. Hartford, Connecticut. Is where my daughter graduated, University of Hartford, and I, kind of keeping an eye on Hartford. They've been coming up again and again for growth. There's a lot of revitalization happening in Hartford, and because of that, there's draw. The prices there were very low, because it wasn't as it had its issues. Definitely has its issues, but they're revitalizing it, making it more desirable. More people moving in, prices are appreciating. It says in 2025, 66% of homes in Hartford sold above their list price. 65%, more than any other major metro. This is not opinion. This is based on data. Buffalo, New York. New York's Big Apple remains a powerhouse, even with its notoriously high cost of living. Zillow points to a strong home price forecast, robust employment, yes, and low percentage of listings experiencing price cuts, only 13.5%, indicating a very stable and in-demand market. Now, I don't live there, and I don't do business there, but I have referral partners in New York. And I will tell you that the referrals that I have sent, and they put the houses on the market, they go in a hot second. They do. The demand is high, if you price it properly. San Jose, California, which is interesting because I believe Moody's called for a pretty significant price drop, but it says they have 27% inventory deficit, which whenever you have an inventory deficit, you're not going to have massive depreciation. Philadelphia, Boston, good old Boston, Massachusetts, Los Angeles, Richmond, Virginia, and Milwaukee. Again, this article will be in the description so you guys can check it out. But they looked at, why are these markets heating up? Inventory, price growth, strong forecasts, speed and completion. How long is it going to take? How long does it take to sell? How many days on the market? Again, it's all based on data, not based on pulling information out of their hat. This is all based on data. How long does the house to sell? How long does it take to go under contract? But then how long does it take to close? How quickly does that happen from the time it lists? And an employment and building lag. If you have an area, this is why the Northeast and speaking from where I live in the Massachusetts, East Coast, eastern part of Massachusetts, there is a ton of employment opportunities, tech and medical jobs and colleges and universities and all the things. And we have a building lag. We're not building anywhere near close to what the southern states are. And that results in less inventory, higher demand because people need homes to live in. For sure. So thought I'd bring that up. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting to consider and watch closely. What do you guys think? Just to remind you in the chat, check out the poll. What do we got on the poll? We've got 69 votes so far. Let me know what you think. Very interesting on how you guys are voting. I'll be interested to share that percentage for sure. So in a nutshell, with the home prices, I think it's best case scenario, slow moving. All right, I'm going to jump conversations to the second topic that I wanted to touch on. So over the last couple of weeks, President Trump has announced several policies, and I've given my opinion and I've kind of dug deeper into what those policies are, whether it be, trying to lower the mortgage rates or trying to squeeze out private investors from buying homes. And it's my opinion, but I formulate my opinion based on information, research, data. And he's yet again, and I'm going to give you, just to be very, very, there was a couple comments this week and, it is what it is. If there's a housing policy, I'm going to talk about it. It doesn't matter who the heck he's proposing it or where it's coming from, Trump or otherwise. It's not about calling out Trump or calling out the administration. It just is. I'm an equal opportunity, opinionated person, I guess, or look at, everything as a whole. Doesn't matter who you are. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. I get favoritism about politicians. I don't really care about politicians, to be honest. Well, they're all, yeah. I'm pretty sure every politician on the planet has a bridge to sell you. That's all I'm going to say about that. But in any event, a couple days ago, Trump floats allowing homeowners to claim a depreciation tax break. And that's not to say that his policies that he's proposing are not, they're not good. My problem is it's not fixing the problem. It's not addressing the real problem. And he kind of goes into this a little bit more, which is why I'm bringing it up here. But this is Donald Trump remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, included offhand comment with an apparent new idea, extending the depreciation tax deduction to homeowners. Okay. And he goes on to say, I'm not going to go into all his commentary. This is how it works. Depreciation is an annual tax deduction that lets property owners account for the natural wear and tear over time. This is the tax code now lets businesses and owners of income-producing properties to claim the depreciation, but it isn't allowed for personal residence, except under some circumstances involving business use. That would be if you had a home office in your home. I have a home office. I have a room that is dedicated to doing business. I take a tax depreciation for that room, the square footage and the percentage of electricity used and so on and so forth. But I can't do it on the whole house. This would allow me to do it on the entire house, which would save me some money for sure. It says the tax deduction is calculated based on the property's basis, including its purchase price and when it was placed into service, excluding land value. This lets property owners recoup their costs over multiple years. This is the National Association of Realtors Chief Advocacy Officer Shannon McGann said tax benefits of homeownership have eroded over time. Capital gains, for example. This is for the sale of primary residence. It hasn't been updated since 1997. And that is another element that, Trump is talking about with extending, updating that capital gains, changing that, updating it for today's appreciation. The problem I have, the problem I have with this is actually what he says at the end. He says that the Trump administration is floating several ideas to make housing more affordable. At the speech, Trump also explained an executive order aimed at restricting large institutional investors. And also last week, he had announced a plan to pull the 401k retirement plans for a down payment. And I talked about that last week. However, says the point, Trump said, was to make it easier for people to buy a new home without decreasing home values. This is the problem. This is where the issue is. This article, Yahoo Finance, dropped a couple days ago. It says there's an inherent tug of war in the housing market. First-time home buyers are rooting for low prices that will let them get their foot in the door, but people who are already owned stand to benefit when their home values rise. President Trump weighed in on the conundrum on Wednesday, saying he doesn't want this housing affordability, to push, housing affordability push to end up hurting homeowners. He says, I am very protective of people who that already own a house. Every time you make it more affordable for somebody to buy a house cheaply, you're actually hurting the value of those houses, obviously, because the one thing that works in tandem with the other. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You cannot make a cake without breaking some eggs. Take a stance, President Trump. It's either one or the other. Either you're going to, if the American people want more affordable housing, all these things that he's proposing are truly Band-Aids. Band-Aids to, and the reason I say that is this is not it's not an attack on the president by no means. When I say by Band-Aids is if somehow that house, and here's what needs to happen, the house prices need to be in line with incomes. This is the thing that everybody's talking about. It's, we're going to make it more affordable by giving them money. We're going to let them take money out of their 401k. We're going to lower the interest rates. We're going to reduce investors, maybe open up some inventory that way, but which private investors account for about 1% of the homes that are available. It's not a big enough impact. If you don't get the income to align with what the home values are, yes, you can have more money, but you're still paying high prices. You're still going to pay high prices unless they start giving away buckets of cash at the White House. So you can put 50% down payment, which is not going to happen. Not going to happen. But it doesn't fix the real issue. And on interest rates, the interest rates could go down. It's a temporary fix. It's not a long-term fix. To get the long-term fix, we've got to get income and home values in alignment. And the only way is to create more inventory. And when it comes to what his statement is helping first-time homebuyers get in the house, or he very clearly said he does not want prices to go down, which is exactly the opposite of what needs to happen, or at least, unless somebody's going to start forcing, employers to start, raising income substantially. How do you do that? How do you do that? You can't make private corporations pay people more. You've got to let it naturally appreciate. We need to have a natural appreciation of wages across the country, and hopefully stifle those home values. And how do you stifle home values? From growth, not a crash. Building more inventory. You have 5 houses, 10 houses to choose from. You're not going to overbid on that one house. That one house will be forced to compete with those 10 houses. And yes, will homeowners eat into some of their equity? Yes. It will slowly. It's like, I use the analogy mentioned a couple of weeks ago that, my daughter, when she was about 12, I put, $150 a month, I think I started at, for a car. Didn't even feel it. Put it automatic transfer into a savings. Didn't even feel it. Month after month after month. She turned 16. We've got money. I didn't feel it. You put that small feel. That's how the housing market has to adjust. And yes, it will eat into homeowners' equity, but the equity that we have in this country is in the trillions. Because of what happened during the pandemic, there's an unbelievable amount of equity. And not to say that, it's okay to give money away. I'm not saying that at all. But if there's going to be a hope of healing this market, that something's got to give. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me what you guys think about that. I want to show you this as well. That the home buying, this was a Redford article that I think it was back a couple months ago. What do we got here? Oh no, December 2nd. I think I featured this article before. This is the home buying affordability will improve as wages grow faster. We've got this wage growth versus price growth. You can see the wackadoodle, line with, this was the market crash of 06, 07, 08, the recovery, and then there's the pandemic. The income wage growth, it went up, it went down. A lot of that was impacted by the great financial crisis, not the great financial crisis, the pandemic. But you've got to close that gap. The only way we come out of this is we got to close that gap. All right, let's see what you got here. Angie says that housing prices are selling quicker and higher again here since December. So I'll be honest, the agents, if I don't, you guys send a referral request and I don't have an agent in that area, I'm constantly, interviewing and adding new referral partners. And as I'm adding them, I'm having conversations all over the country. What's happening in your market? The last 3 weeks, activity, way up. Why is that? I don't know. I don't know if people are done waiting. That's my sense, is that people are, again, like I mentioned earlier, that people are just done waiting. But there's definitely more activity with if the house is priced properly. Oh, it's a good question. So XVYJZ0. Will government shutdown make home prices cause them to drop? Yes, speak freely. We are not judging here. Every politician is a politician. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And I try to do that anyways, because I truly come from a place of, I always want to understand. And you know what, if there's value, there's value. If there's not, it's not, but it's not, my beliefs are not politically motivated. If I don't like what somebody's doing, it is what it is. It's not because you're in this bucket, of groups of people. But I digress. But do I think the government shutdown will make home prices increase or drop? That's a great question, because it could. I think some people will react out of fear and sell. I think that potentially could negatively impact if there's all of a sudden a flood of inventory. It could be that, especially if, folks are, want to leave. I've had quite a few people that are relocating either out of the country, or they're going to be nomads, and they're just going to, explore the country and live in an RV and travel, which I think is kind of cool, just to, see the country, see the US and all the different areas. But you know what? It's an interesting question, and I don't have there is no exact answer, because I think it's far more reaching than something as simple as the government shutdown. We have to take into consideration what's happening all around us, and what's happening economically, what's happening in the jobs market, what's happening politically in terms of relationships with other countries. It could hurt us. It could keep things status quo. I mean, things have been getting a little dicey politically with other countries and all the things. The market hasn't stopped. So that kind of gives you a hint on what would happen. The government shutdown, that would mean that there'd be no new policies, but they haven't really rolled out anything that is significant. And all this stuff that just to be clear, everything that Trump is talking about, these are ideas that he's floating. They're not actual, solidified policies. This is just stuff that he's floating and ideas. And I will use the words lip service, not as a derogatory intention, but the fact of the matter is he's a typical politician. He's going to try to make people feel better and more confident about the economy by saying these words of all these things, but none of it has legs. Like, there's no traction. It's like, dude, how about you stop talking about stuff and actually do something? Yes, I'm talking to you, Mr. Trump. Mr. President Trump, stop building unnecessary buildings and adding and renovating. And how about attacking gas and prices, grocery prices, and truly the housing affordability, economic affordability? Like, can we please? Can we please? Dude, do something. Anyways, I'm just kidding. I'm a little frustrated. Frustrated because of the fact that, whenever I hear empty promises, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. Empty promises are empty promises. And when, attention is paid to something other than the promise, it becomes lip service. I'm going to do this, but then I'm not going to do anything about it to actually make it so. It is what it is. Mary Beth says, hello, I have the same question for you that I had for your friend Jackie. Very, very, very close friend Jackie. In your opinion, are appraisals becoming more true to market comparison? Also, have you had any appraisals come in below recently? So the second question, super easy to answer. No. Knock on wood. No, haven't had any issues. Why? Because properties, even though we're in the Northeast, in my area, homes are not selling, crazy over asking, where appraisals might be an issue to support that value. So I haven't. But in my opinion, appraisals becoming more true to market comparison. Appraisals, so there are two different types of appraisals. There are transaction appraisals, and then there are general appraisals. So say you're getting an equity loan, you need a general appraisal. And say you're buying a house with a purchase contract of which the appraiser receives, he knows what number you're trying to come to. They will be two different values. Why? Because as much as appraisers dig into the data way more than the average real estate agent does, they have formulas. They have ways of comparing properties. But at the end of the day, this house versus this house, You're never going to find, you go in a car lot and you say, I want a brand new, 2026 Highlander. It doesn't matter which dealership you buy it from. It's going to be the same car. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen in the housing market. There are little nuances that the value is what a buyer is willing to pay. Period. Well, what I would follow up to say what a buyer's willing to pay and what a seller's willing to accept. But ultimately, it comes down to what the buyer's willing to pay. And that changes for every buyer. So it's not a hard science. Appraisals, have they become more true to market? I don't think that they ever were not true to market post great financial crisis. One of the reason why the great financial crisis, why the market crashed, and why, we say that it was focused around the mortgage market, a key component to that was artificially inflated appraisals. You could try to buy a property. The property is way overvalued, but you want to buy it badly. So then the lender calls their go-to appraiser. That go-to appraiser that can magically make the numbers, work. And they put together an appraisal to appease the lender. No longer. Post Great Financial Crisis, appraisals are done by a blind selection. So when you buy a property and you submit that mortgage application, get that ball rolling, and it's time for an appraisal, and that is determined by the underwriter. The underwriter, depending on your credit and the down payment and all the things, they don't all require an appraisal. Most of them do, but some do not, or they may only require a drive-by appraisal. They don't even go in the house. But if they need to go into the house for a regular full appraisal, they literally have a blind selection process. The lender doesn't know who the appraiser is, and that is done intentionally. It's a federal law. They say, I need an appraisal done at 123 Main Street. They put it in the system, and then the system randomly selects an appraiser in the area, period. They have tightened down on licensing with appraisers so that now appraisers, they're held accountable to the value. And if that value, if the underwriter, once they receive the appraiser, because it's a two-step process, the appraiser puts the report together when you're purchasing a house, and then the underwriter for the lender reviews the appraisal. And the appraiser is going to note different things. So say, for example, you're doing an FHA loan. This is an easy one. And the appraiser goes through, and their job is not, they're just looking at, black and white, what's in the property, and even probably more so post financial crisis, that they are very, very careful, knowing that they could lose their license if they're not. They will list everything, and maybe the house has some peeling paint, and they note it in the report. Now, when it comes back to the lender, FHA is not going to like that. That's a red flag. Peeling paint is a red flag to FHA. So they will review that. And now the underwriter will go back and say, okay, the appraisal came in, but the peeling paint's an issue on that appraisal. And sometimes it affects the appraised value. So have they become more true to market comparison? I think they since the Great Financial Crisis, post Great Financial Crisis, yes, I think it's been that way. So I hope that answers your question. Let me know in the chat if you need me to go in a different direction or didn't interpret your question properly the way you meant it. Maddie says that are all price forecasts on the same basis? Is one just existing single-family homes and another including condos and or new construction? So when I look at some of the data, I specifically look at single-family homes. I look at new construction, two different animals. But for the most part, they're clumping everything together. And that is why you absolutely need to do your own research, work with an agent that does research to separate, because, condominiums, depending on your market, will have a different measure of appreciation and depreciation. There were markets, over the years, I've watched condos appreciate faster than single family homes. I think we're heading into that type of an era, to be honest, because condominiums tend to be a little bit more affordable. But the other way is true as well. So, and the same thing with new construction. New construction might be depreciating, whereas single family homes might be appreciating. Like it is, they are just clumping together with the price forecast. And that's why it's very loose, very, very loose. It gives you a general overview, and you're looking at the entire state, and it's, and the estimation for a forecast is appreciation across the state. Well, then it's just a matter of how much appreciation. It might be less for condos versus single family and vice versa. So let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Clark says exactly what he is saying doesn't fix the housing problem. He mentioned during that speech that he could crash the housing market so fast. Yes, he did. I purposely didn't read that because it just makes me frustrated when there's bold statements like that. I think that there's so much fear. As a political side note, I think there's so much fear and uncertainty in this country. Why do we need to instill more fear? Why? It doesn't. A good leader doesn't do that. There's a difference between being a realist and being a fearmonger. Why do you got to go down that avenue? But yeah, he has absolutely said he could crash the housing market, but he wasn't going to do it. So many things that he says like that. Yeah, and that's, I don't understand. Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not, that's the saying. I say that at the end of the live stream. That's what I live by. I want to understand. Some things I just struggle with. I can't find an understanding on. Yes, I agree. I think that the capital gains, Angie says, crazy new home values, how home values have appreciated and capital gains haven't adjusted. That's something that needs to happen. It's so overdue. So overdue. But why? This is the thing. This is why I get frustrated with all these statements, because that to me is, I mean, they're talking about this like for a couple of years. Really? Like, tell me what the downside is. Oh, wait, the government will get less money. It's true. Let's see what else you got. Ooh, MHOA says raise the minimum wage to $50 an hour. Unfortunately, that would put a lot of people out of business. Small business, that's the thing is Massachusetts, I don't know how it is in other states. Self-employment tax is disgusting. Makes it very, very hard, because as I've been paying self-employment tax for 30 years. I pay my federal taxes, I pay my state taxes, and I pay an additional 15% in self-employment tax. I got an issue with that. Because why are you singling us out? Why are you penalizing us for being self-employed? It's ridiculous. Let's see. Clark says, if you want home prices to stay the same, then you can't start banning people from buying. You can't start cutting programs, etc. He's all over the place. Like you said, he needs to pick a side. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that's very confusing. It's very confusing is this fact that he wants to help people, but yet he's done away with massive programs, federal programs, that would help people with down payments. Pick a direction. You cut all the money, but now you're going to give some money back, or it's I don't know. It's I just don't put a lot of faith. This is why I don't put a lot of faith into promises. I want to see actual progress before I give in to any kind of, I'm not giving in to any hype. Okay, I'm a realist. What's before me is what I'm going to believe, and if it's not real, it's just talk. It's just talk. Um, it's less trips to the kitchen. MH08. That's what it is. That's all it is. Less times I got to go downstairs to refill my mug. That's all it is. Mary says, I agree with you, Jen, and I'll add that seems to be that way. Seems to be the way he works with everything, eating all the cake. Yeah, I mean, and again, this is not an anti anyone conversation. This is just it just is. The fact of the matter is that the country's in crisis. Housing market touches all different, all endless number of businesses, large businesses, small businesses, homeowners. The more homeowners you have, the more it benefits a community because they're going to the hardware store. They're buying things. They're spending money, putting money into the system. And it's when I read on the news or, and trust me when I tell you, I scrutinize the news big time because yes, every news outlet has an angle. So I read and look at all the different angles, formulate my own decision, period. And, it's like, I don't know, focus on the right things. Can you focus on the right things? Anyways, somebody needs to send a telegraph to the people in charge. For the love of God. Let's see. Grease Belly Garage. What a great handle. I've noticed that Zillow has turned the real estate market into Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to save that. I love that. That's so good. Isn't that true? Good Lord. Facebook Marketplace, I'm going to take a jab right now. All those memes are like so true. I can't tell you. I put things for free and I have people that respond, and I don't do this often, but put in there for free and then I'll get messages and they'll be like, will you take $25 for it? Oh, God, help me. It's free. Or will you drive it an hour to drop it off? It's free. Like, what the heck? Help me understand. I don't understand. Oh, why people are just, I don't understand. I don't get it. Yeah. Empty promises from politicians. It bothers me so much to say that 99% of them are exactly that. And if you can't, I understand that some people, this is kind of taking a side quest off the housing market, but it is kind of connected to the housing market in the sense that, I understand politicians they don't have like a magic wand that they can just make this stuff go through. There's checks and balances. That's the way our government's set up. And that's the way, according to the Constitution, it was built that way. But don't make it sound like it's definitely going to happen. Like, just to give us lip service. And this is across the board. Democrats, Republicans, everybody in between. And, it's like, what? Just don't. And I know that that's not going to buy votes and all this stuff. That's what makes it, I don't know, I think politics, it's just gross. It's gross. Empty promises. But anyways, I digress. Illuminated perfumes. I decided not to buy in 2017. Since then, prices have doubled. Is there any report that will tell me where prices are going? You know what? This is why I have these live streams to dig into that data. I mean, that's what we've been talking about all, this evening. And to be honest, you gotta, the best sources, you gotta lean into, the professionals, the economics, the economists that are way smarter than I am because they're looking at way more data than I have available to me, and crunching it. But not just one economist. You got to look at them all, and then you've got to take that information and you got to compare it to what's actually happening in your area. Even then, I hate to tell you, even then, it's still not something you can, or something. It's not going to be something, or it's not. It shouldn't be something that you should hang your hat on. If the time is right for you, and I'm speaking, as if you were buying the property, you're going to stay in there for at least 7 to 10 years. Okay, long term. Real estate, in my opinion, is meant to be a crock pot. It is not a microwave. Yes, if you're a serious investor, whether it be a mom and pop investor or otherwise, and you're looking at this maybe short term where you're going to fix it and sell it, or hold it for a few years, then sell it because you're an investor, different conversation. But if you are a home owner, you desire to be a home owner, you've got to look at it long term. And long term will allow you to weather that storm. Because the reality of it is yes, prices went up. You could have been on that gravy train, but who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years? And the prices could go up very slowly, and you don't even know what's happening. If they go up 1.5% over the next 10 years, that's a lot of equity over the course of the last 50 years. And actually, I have, let's see if I can pull this up. Super, here we go. So this is dating back from 1965. This is coming from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. This is the median sales price of houses sold in the U.S. This is the trajectory. And the trajectory tells us that if you wait long enough, prices will go up. They always do. Always, in the sense that from 1965, you see blips, you see downturns. Behind every downturn follows an appreciation. It just, that is the way the market rolls with that. In regards to housing market, there's always an upward trajectory. Just like, incomes go up, cost of living goes up, so does in housing. And so if you buy it, if you say you put your foot down and do something, if the numbers make sense to you today, financially, your personal situation, your family situation, your job situation, and your own personal goals, if all of that checks out, then why wait? There's no reason to wait, because in 10 years, you will have appreciation. You may not have false appreciation we had over the pandemic, but you will have appreciation. The average over the last 50 years is 4.5% appreciation. That's the average. I don't think we're going to get 4.5%, but we will have appreciation across the country because data tells us so. I hope that helps. Dun, 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 dun. You're very welcome. SMMVB about the appraisal process. Or Mary Beth, you're very welcome. Skate says, I always considered bank appraisals as being the low end of the range of a home's value. Who knows where the Zestimate falls? Well, the Zestimate, I think it doesn't even come into conversation, because the Zestimate is it is a guesstimate. It is, yes, they have an algorithm, but nobody's inspecting the house. Appraisers do. Appraisers go into the property and they make note of everything. They try to get as much information on the comparable properties. They have access to MLS. They look at the pictures and all the things that are available to them. But Zestimate is a computer generated number, whereas an appraiser is done by appraisal is done by a human that can take all that information into effect. That if the neighbor has an in-ground pool, but you have an in-ground pool and a guest house or a pool room, or a man cave or a woman cave, it's got, electricity and climate control and all the things. Does that add value? Well, I mean, if you're in the right part of the country, yes. but Zillow's not going to know about that. So it's very interesting. Let's see, XVYJZ. I used your strategy recently and interviewed multiple realtors. Yay. So glad I did, because the first realtor couldn't answer how he would adjust the house if staying longer on the market than usual. I'm going to give you a big cheer on that one. That is exactly why I want you guys to advocate for yourself. I want you to interview. You asked me for a referral. I give you a referral. You should still talk to 2 other agents. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. If you only talk to one person, what have you got to compare it to? If you're putting an addition on your house, you're having renovations done on your house, and you only talk to one contractor, how do you know you're paying double what you should be paying? Unless you talk to other contractors. So kudos, kudos, kudos. I am so proud of you for doing that. I love it, love it, love it. You guys are paying good money for real estate agents are not cheap. You need to demand value and ask the tough questions. Oh, thank you. Hey, baby blue. I appreciate you. I appreciate Tuesday night is, I look forward to Tuesday nights because it's my one time to be able to interact with you guys real time outside of, emails and all the things. Let's see. Interesting. Amy Choi says, I did my own appraisal before getting a real one. We were $3,000 apart. That is pretty darn good. That is really only $3,000 apart. That's really, really, really good. You're very welcome, Mary Beth. Very, very, very welcome. I appreciate you being here and asking the question. Illuminated Perfume says, I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, mostly a retirement community. Do you have some good questions to ask when interviewing agent? Yes, yes, yes. I have done multiple videos on that, actually. Way more information than I can get into on the live stream. I urge you to check them out. There's a bunch in there, what not to say to your agent, different types of videos. I should, on the YouTube channel, you'll see that there's if you go to the homepage of the channel, and then there's a bar, videos, live streams, and then there's playlists. And actually, you know what? I'm going to make a note that I will create a playlist for interviewing, because I only allow you guys ask about that. And if I have them all in one place, then you don't have to search for it. So I'm going to make that change for you. And I don't have like a PDF, but it's on my very long to-do list. It's on the to-do list. Yes. We're on the same page. Absolutely. We're on the same page, Angie. Yeah, I you know what? I agree with you. I stay aware as much as I need to be with what politicians are saying, but I don't drink the Kool-Aid for any politician. Like, I just, the Sylvester household, that is my main concern. What's happening and the stability of my household, my kids and myself and well-being and all the things. There are so many things that are out of our control. I think that people, it creates unnecessary anxiety and all the things that is not healthy. It is not healthy. Angie says that since they raised the minimum wage for fast food workers here to $20 per hour, the restaurants are closing. That is exactly what I'm talking about. It's hard. You know what? This is the thing is it's such a, home affordability period. It is such a gigantic issue. You can't just take a 90-degree angle. It's got to be something that's slow and steady. Income has to rise slowly. Cost of living rate, wage increases, and home values need to appreciate a little bit slower. It is a crockpot situation all day long. Any drastic increases, it's gonna have consequences, and it has had consequences. We've seen it with tariffs. And I don't know if somebody's trying to be a white knight and trying to save us all or whatever not, but when you cut out, countries stop doing business with the United States because of tariffs, all it does is reduce competition. Reducing competition means rising prices. How does that affect you and I in a positive way? Nope. I like going on Amazon. I'm not loyal to Amazon, but you know what? If I want to buy something, I appreciate the fact that there's a bazillion different people selling this stuff. What does that do? Downward prices, downward pressure. It's the same as the housing market. It's downward pressure on prices. When you limit that, you're going to be paying more. And I don't know about you guys, but I care more about my my family economic situation way more than the U.S. economic situation. It just is. It just is. I have to pay. I have to look out for my family. Period. Let's see. That's just my yeah. MH08 says, yeah, our minimum wage in Denver is $19 an hour and change. That's crazy. Actually, it's not crazy. My daughter, my youngest kid, was working at Target. She's like an on-call at Target, and I think she was making $18 an hour at Target. I'm like, holy cow! I was paying like $4 or $5 an hour when I was her age. Jeepers. Yeah, and he said, that's why Big Macs are $7. I went to McDonald's once, I don't know, several months ago to buy food. Well, yeah, of course to buy food, but I got to the window. I'm like, it was like $30. I'm like, wait, what? I could go to a restaurant and do takeout for the same amount that I just paid to McDonald's. What is happening here? Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't get into politics less arguing with friends and family. My 2 cents is, I think if more people adopted the mindset, the reason why I say it at every end of every live stream, before you judge, seek to understand. Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not judgmental. Then maybe you might learn something, but not doing that, that's when it doesn't go well. Conversations don't go anywhere, and you don't learn anything. You don't learn anything because sometimes, you learn some stuff, you might be surprised. Might be surprised at what you learn. I'm addicted to learning. I think that's one of the one things that's the best thing to help you grow is get addicted to learning, trying to understand, ask questions. Cordeleone, I'm going to butcher that. Sorry. I live in one of the fastest growing counties in the country, and every day so many houses are reducing their prices. Interesting. I wonder, if you'd like, you can share where that is. So there's definitely pockets, whether you're talking Texas or you're talking, Florida or Louisiana, there's definitely pockets that are growing but slowing down. Angie says Carl's Jr. was the first fast food chain restaurant here in our town, and it closed last week. That makes me so sad. Yeah, it's necessity breeds invention. There were more businesses started, self-employed small business owners that branched out during pandemic than any other time in history, because people were forced to stay home and they didn't love their job. They hated their job, and then they've got this thing that they've always wanted to pursue, and they're being paid unemployment. because because they have to be home so they can spend the time to research. And after the pandemic started to ease, the restrictions started to ease, and the country started to heal, all the things, the number of small businesses in this country were huge. It is sad when longtime businesses close. Necessity breeds invention. So if there's a necessity for another fast food chain, there will be somebody behind it. There will be a startup. There will be more food trucks. Easy startup. That's the thing is you focus on the yes, it's sad, but there's always opportunity. There's always something around the corner that will be filling the opportunity. And maybe they'll be better potentially. Skates asks, an idea for a video topic is to talk about realtor credentials and what value they bring. GRI, ABR, SRS. So I'm going to get my 2 cents on that right now. I think that when I am vetting out agents, what the credentials mean to me is that not a direct representation of what the credentials, they don't get put on a plateau or pedestal because they have the credentials. What that means to me is they are always looking to learn and better themselves, because if they're getting the credentials, if they're getting those designations, okay, and going through the courses and tests and all the things, that means they're looking to improve. It's not about making more money, selling more houses and all just that. It's a self improvement goal. And agents that are always looking to improve, in my opinion, typically, those are the agents that are going to be at the top tier. Those are the ones that are always going to be looking to get better, even if they're. And when I have a conversation, my interview with these referral, potential referral partners, I tell them, I'm looking for agents that are better than myself. I'm looking to learn from that, but I'm also looking for agents that are not happy with their status quo. That yes, they may be doing great, but they're always looking to improve. And I think that is what it is. But I would never hire someone just because they have credentials. I think it helps, but it doesn't. That in itself, there's more value in in what it represents as a whole, as opposed to individual representation. I hope that makes sense to you. That's just my opinion. Let's see. So Cindy, I actually have heard of ground news. I heard it. I was watching a podcast on good old YouTube's. Been watching for a while. Interesting. It's called the Necessary Conversation. Is it interesting? and that was brought up as and I believe that's the one that they mentioned where it combines all different news sources. I don't mind sharing that the only news source that I pay attention to is News Nation on YouTube. Really, I don't put any weight into any of the other news broadcasts. News Nation, I've talked to my liberal friends, I've talked to my Republican friends, and News Nation is that middle ground where it doesn't lean one way or the other. They're fair to both sides. They just report the news. They don't put a spin on it with a ridiculous tagline, making it lean one way or the other, or only pointing out certain facts. I like that. Just give it to me straight. Don't give me fluff. Just give it to me, or all your opinions and all the things. Just give it to me straight. And that's what I go to. Feel free to look it up. Let's see. KBB Blue says, yes, home prices always go up. 2008 was a hiccup because everyone was under predatory lending. Yes, and some were just doomed because of it. Too many people getting loans that they should never have been approved for. Too many speculative, the number of novice investors, people that wanted to be flippers, not the hamburger kind. They wanted to flip houses because it was easy money, and they could get a loan from the bank that without here, do you fog a mirror? Yep. Okay. Here's $300,000, $400,000. And then when the note was due, wait, we can't pay this because the market's diving, and all of a sudden everybody, it was a mess. So yeah, overinflated for different reasons. Let's see, true. Let's see, a true soldier. Hey, I purchased a house a little over a year ago in Omaha, Nebraska. I've got a great referral partner there. I don't want values to drop in hopes I can refinance later. I can afford the house I'm in now, but I want to pay less interest. Of course. I refinanced during the pandemic. I most definitely refinanced, grabbed a low rate because I'm not planning on moving anytime soon. I wanted to take advantage of it. And you know what? The rule of thumb is usually a percentage, 1 percentage point when it comes to refinancing. In terms of looking at the recapture cost and what it actually costs you to refinance, and whether it's worth it, it's typically, I think most financial advisors, most lenders, will advise you, loan officers will advise you 1%. You got to look at the numbers. Don't go by their advice. Look at the numbers in terms of how much is it going to save you versus how much it's going to cost you, and how many years. If it's going to cost you $2,000-$3,000 compared to savings $50 a month, it's going to take a ton of time. Yeah, great, you're saving $50, but you're spending a couple grand spending to save. When it's lopsided like that, how many years is it going to take to recapture that money? In other words, when are you going to break even for the savings versus what you spent? And usually a percentage point offers a big enough savings to cancel that recapture in a shorter period of time. And especially if you're planning to stay, if you're not, you got to look at that as well. By all means. Okay, Miss H with the QQ. How about income going down from layoffs, being fired, not hiring in someone's field of schooling they choose? Won't that make it harder to focus on trying to buy a home? Your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, the thing is that incomes, there's going to be, and always will be, incomes, a deficiency in income, a decline in an individual's income if they do get laid off or fired. But I think the thing that folks will be forced to look at is, especially you mentioned, hiring someone's field of schooling, or not hired, not hiring in someone's field. It's all about pivoting. It's about the pivot. This is something that I think is going to be hard for a lot of folks in this country, because, in my opinion, the work ethic in this country has declined significantly. What do I mean by that? 20, 25 years ago, and for sure, there are a lot of people that still, go by this. They still do. They still have that work ethic, but I feel like it wasn't too long ago where you just did what you needed to do. If there weren't jobs available, then you learned how to do a new job. You did it to survive, to pay the bills and all the things. Now, especially with some of our younger people, it is, well, I don't have a job because it's not what I want to do, or it wasn't, so I'm just going to stay home. I'm going to work at a less an inferior paying job. It's like, no, don't be a stick in the mud. Put your big adult pants on and go learn a new craft and pivot. If the job that you're trained in, or even if the job that you've been doing is becoming obsolete, train. You just you have to pivot to something different that can interest you, will interest you, or maybe you just do it because you need to in order to pay the bills. I think that good old-fashioned work ethic needs to make a comeback. Just my thoughts. I don't know. Being self-employed for 30 years with no guarantee of a paycheck. I just do what I had, do what you got to do. Long hours, so be it. Hold off on purchases, so be it. Learn how to do different things. Invest in it, education. That's what you got to do. What you need to do. Work ethic, if it, Angie says, "You're my cooking dinner companion on Tuesdays." I love that. Too bad you're on the West Coast. You can't send some food my way. I usually end up reheating something after the live stream. No cooking for me tonight. Corleone? Oh gosh. I want to sell this year, but I live in one of the fastest growing. Oh, I think I already I answered that one. We already talked about that. Yes, I will work on that, and I made a note of it, so it will be so. It will be so. Angie says, I agree. I would love to only buy American, but then they would have to. This is what I'm talking about. But then they have to have competitive pricing. I have to budget for my household. You hit the nail on the head. I am 100% on the same page. I would love to support small businesses here. I would love to. However, I, like everyone else, I'm a middle class, U.S. resident where I live by my budget. And if I can get the same thing for half the price, as much as I want to help the small business, I have to look out for my household. I got to look out for my family, because that money that I'm spending more to help that small business is money that it's taking away from my family. And it's a tough decision, but at the end of the day, it is about our household. It just is. We got to take care of our family. We have to take care of our family, and it just is the fact of the matter. Wow. When I worked in high school, I was making $2.60 an hour. Oof. Yeah, you know what? I feel like I had that same situation when I was in high school, in the 80s. I feel like my first job, which I actually my first job when I was 14, internship at a training facility for the power plant, the local power plant, working in making training videos. 14 years old. Oh, God help me. It was an interesting job. Let's see. I wanted to check and see if okay, I just want to make sure I got to all the stuff that I wanted to get to here, because we're going to wrap it up here. Oh, thank you, Celeste. I appreciate that. Jen, I admire your ability to navigate the political arena. I'm unable to keep my emotions in check. It has taken years and years and years to get to this point, but I am very... Here's the thing, and this is not housing market related. It saddens me. It deeply saddens me to see friends that are no longer friends, friendships that are missed, acquaintances, relationships that are negatively impacted solely based on political views. I think it's BS. I think it's the thing that is probably the most frustrating to me about the state of our country right now is exactly that, the division, because we can be friends. We can get along. I have plenty of Republican friends. I have plenty of liberal friends. We all get along. Why? Because it's about understanding and respecting, because everyone has their opinions, but that doesn't define who they are. It doesn't define them. As a person, their personal views, their priorities, and all, and they don't mesh, well, then we're just not friends because of that, not because of their political stance. It's because of what they believe, how they carry themselves, what their belief structure is, how they approach, what's their emotional involvement in the relation, whatever, what kind of person they are, which is not defined just by who you punched on a ticket. I think it's sad. And that's why I really, when I do these live streams, I want to be middle of the road. I am middle of the road because I want everyone to have a voice. I want everyone to have a voice. And I want that voice to be heard because guess what? Sometimes when you're curious and you're trying to understand, sometimes that friend that voted differently from you will bring up something that makes you go, huh, didn't think about it that way. Interesting. Now, I may not 100% agree. Sometimes I do. But even if we don't, that doesn't mean we can't have a good conversation. Are they respectful? Are they honest? Are they sincere? Those are the things that we should be measuring people by, not by a party. When did that become a thing? When did that become a thing? That is a very sad state of affairs, in my opinion, that we're at that point. And so I appreciate you commenting on that. For sure, for sure. New houses being built all over and they take longer to sell, but they are allowing more to be built. Interesting. I'd be interested to know why that is, because builders, if the builders can't sell, they're typically going to scale back. Grease Belly Garage says, I'm selling a 1 acre house in the Sarasota, Bradenton area of Florida. I've had 2 people from Zillow call and offer me what I paid for the house 27 years ago. That drives me crazy. It drives me crazy when buyers bring up what a seller paid for the property. And I tell them straight off, it's irrelevant what they paid for the property. Irrelevant. There always will be predators. Here's the thing. I have a client who reached out to me and the house needs some work and he's working on it and all the things. He's not ready to go to sell it yet. And he messaged me a couple months back and says, hey, what do you think about that? We buy ugly houses, postcard I get in the mail. What do you think? I said, have a conversation with him. I said, be very careful. Be very careful. Do not sign anything until you have read all the fine print and you understand what exactly is transpiring. When you do that, you'll likely find that this is not what it's cracked up to be because marketing is just that marketing. But talk to them. It's like if you're curious, have a conversation. And then you can kind of see then the truth. You start asking the tough questions. Like, what exactly are you paying for me for the house? Now you get down to the meat and then you're like, yep, see ya. See ya. All right, guys. Yes, Angie listens to News Nations too. I just like the fact that there is commentary. I appreciate Chris Como and the fact that his commentary is both. He listens to both sides. He does. His commentary is real, and I appreciate that. Because then you can manage your own emotions. You're like, the sky is falling. It's like, no, not really. He should have said that, but not really. That's fine. This is a loaded question. Jen, when before you became a realtor, what did you do for work? Okay. So out of high school, I went to college for 3 months. Didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. A friend of mine said, and I was trained. I was taught classical piano. I was in a band in high school. Did the whole high school band thing, and all the stuff. It was just a fun thing. But then after college was boring and I had no reason to be there. I was going to go. A friend of mine says, hey, they have this blues rock band that's looking for a keyboard player. Are you interested? I said, sure. 19 years old. I'm like, why? Yeah, let's go. I dropped out of school, joined the band, did that for 5 years, worked retail to pay the bills. And, every night was practice or gigs, record a couple albums. And the name of the band was The Injuries. If you go on eBay, I think we had some CDs on eBay at one point in time. Nothing will come up, I'm sure. But anyways, it was fun. The problem was, didn't pay any money. And newsflash, it didn't work out. So I was working at a department store selling TVs and video equipment, and this gentleman who worked in the this is so undramatic. It's not interesting. It's not a Hallmark movie moment by no means, but this old guy in this old washers and dryers said, Jen, you should get your real estate license. I'm like, what the heck? I'm renting a 300 square foot apartment with my boyfriend. What the heck do I need? Like, I don't know anything about real estate. I'm like, what else have I got to lose? That was 30 years ago. 6 months after that, I got fired from the department store. That 6 months after that went belly up, closed the doors forever, because I was 3 minutes late to a shift. I said, good riddance, did me a favor. And the more I got into real estate, the more I learned. I'm addicted to learning. So the more I learned, I realized how it's hard, but so satisfying to help people the way I want to help people. So there it is. There it is. So it's, and if you've heard me hum and sing, you can kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. I did not sing in the band. I did not have a microphone. No, I don't have the chops for that. But that's what I did. So it's not super fancy or exciting, but it was interesting and got to meet, some pretty cool people along the journey of, playing in different places and holes in the walls and bigger places. And we recorded an album with a mobile 16-track studio in our home turf, and had so many people show up. They they had to call the riot police because there were so many people while we recorded the album live. It was kind of bonkers. But what a memory. That was it. So there it is. There it is. I would not want to go back to that, but it was crazy. And I think of today where I literally would go out and get like 3 hours of sleep and get up first thing in the morning and go to work and then rinse and repeat 7 days a week. And now you get people complaining about like, oh, I got to work 30 hours. I got to work 25 hours, whatever. I'm like, sometimes this younger generation and some not so young generation, there's a lot of complaints with the work ethic. Yes, Karen, 100%. Yes and yes and yes. All right, guys. This has been great. I can't. Marching band rules. Yes, my daughter, my oldest kid, was 5 years in marching band. I was the super devoted marching band mom. Jackie Baker, if you watch her stuff, she was as well. We have a lot in common, actually. But her kids are all in marching band. And her middle kid actually marched in the Macy's parade this year, Christmas Macy's parade, which was super, super exciting. So, you guys, I'm gonna have to go through these comments. I am gonna pull this up, Jen. This may sound weird, not weird at all. You remind me of my daughter. She's a mechanical engineer. So fun fact, I was actually, before I went to, I was doing like a general communications study, I think. When I was in high school, my dad is a civil engineer. And is a civil engineer? I think that was his branch. But in any event, I legitimately was thinking about going into that because I like the very systematic, I like attaching data and numbers and justifying and all the things. But life put me in a different direction, and I'm glad it did. For sure. Because I met my, what would eventually be my husband. My husband was my roadie during our band days. And next to the drummer, I had the most amount of equipment. So Thank God for that. But in any event, guys, this has been fun. Great conversation. And I love your comment. Tracy Lee, band moms gone wild. I should probably find that t-shirt for Jackie. But in any event, I really appreciate this conversation. I really, I enjoy, having kind of this little lighthearted stuff. And you know what? I appreciate you guys being curious. I appreciate you guys being, asking questions, seeking to understand. Let's carry it forward. Let's, I think that if there's more of that, we can fight back on the powers that be that are we're fighting against judgment and cynicism and anger and meanness. We can fight back at that by just trying to understand. Don't have to agree. Be curious, not judgmental. You guys are great. I look forward to this every week. Have a wonderful week. If you guys are in the path of the storm that's supposed to hit us on Sunday, the Bombo Genesis, whatever the heck is happening, be safe, stay warm, and every place that's having unseasonably cold temperatures, stay warm, take care of each other, check in on your neighbor, check in on your elderly parents, your grandparents, all the things, your neighbor across the street. Just let's look out for each other and take care of each other. Have a great week. See you guys next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, for another exciting edition of the Savvy Home Seller Housing Market Show. Love you all. Have a great week. See you guys. Bye.